Okay. Alright, so blue shift. Alright, so, alrighty guys. Look at the minimap. Look at only the minimap. Tilt it vertically. What do you see? Wait 1 second. I know someone made a mock-up of it. Maybe I'll just have to do it. I'll just have to show it to you anyway. Without the little... Can I just do that? Here. Can I... Wait up. Okay, here we go. Ready? Look, it's Catalyst. Whoa, isn't that crazy? Whoa, look, it's Catalyst. Yeah, this was the biggest complaint about Blue Shift when it came out in the original TLMC from last time. I actually really liked the map. I gave it an immediate 5 and wanted it to win the entire thing when I was judging this. And then someone pointed out that it is literally just Catalyst flipped on its side. And I was like, you know what, you're right, but that doesn't make me dislike it anymore. They're both made by -0. So now we got rid of Catalyst, now we have Catalyst on its side with a nicer tile set. Which again, I'm not really complaining about. But that's what we got right now, just so you guys, in case you guys didn't realize that. Yeah, wall off, exactly the same still. Which one is it? Oh wait, none of these have it actually. I didn't realize that. Oh, that's very obnoxious then. Alright, so that makes 2 maps that you can't do this on. So you can't do a normal Reaper wall on this map. For the... by the Nexus. It looks like there's multiple Reaper cliffs though, as well, which means you can't do a single Reaper cliff either, which is actually very annoying. You'll be able to do that and that, but then you have to do this. So you can do that, that. I don't know if that fully walls this off, because there's that little spot right here. I don't know if that's fully... I don't know if you can jump up that way, though. Right, like it looks like it's walled, but there might... like it might be able to go like this. I'm not entirely sure. So this map actually looks like it's going to be kind of annoying for Reapers. But otherwise, it's Catalyst flipped on its side. It looks beautiful though. I love this tile set. Actually, all of these are hit with rocks though, so that means it's going to be more difficult. That means it's going to be more difficult for someone to commit to both sides here. So if someone wants to do one of those things, so like on Catalyst, right, if they're going across the map, usually what you have to do is you have to scout the middle and then see where they're deviating, because this path is not blocked by rocks. And so they can go either down the, like they can either go down the middle and then up and then to the third, or they can just go straight down the middle up into the natural. This, they can't do that on. They have to kill rocks first, so they have to commit first to either all the way down to the third or all the way down to the middle. unless they kill the rocks. So that actually makes it easier. Oh, there's also there's a watchtower. I didn't know there was a watchtower here. I didn't even notice that. It was covered by all these bushes. So that even makes it even easier then. So it's gonna be even. So not only are they gonna have to be committed to one way or the other, you also have a watchtower on the side, so you can much more easily see it coming. So you know exactly where they're going to be, which makes it again even easier to scout when you're being pressured and where you're being pressured. But yeah, very easy 3-base setup. And then 4 bases, you can either go over here or you can just continue along into this corner. The 4th base is a little farther away than on Catalyst, with some extra little low ground stuff. Or you can do a more forward 4th base, which is interesting. What are you guys saying? The new map contest tournament is going to be, I'm guessing, for first season of 2019. So that's really all I have to say about... That's really all I'm going to be doing for each of these maps. I don't really have anything else to analyze for them, to be honest. What's next? Scrolling down, scrolling down, scrolling down, scrolling down. Fracture. Fracture looks really nice. I like snow maps in general. So all these maps were from the TLMC that I helped judge. Like I said, Blue Shift was the #1 map that I thought should go through. I just liked it very much. Fracture, I didn't really rate that highly because of the 3rd bases. Something interesting about Fracture, though, is that this natural is actually puny. You only need 2 buildings to wall this off with a 1 gap. Yeah, King Sejong is the best map in history. You can do a normal pylon block like this, or a Reaper wall, I mean, like this. And the only Reaper cliff jump is right here, and I think over here. Yeah. I actually didn't test if you can wall this off. Well, yes you can. No, you can't? Maybe you can. No, it looks like you can go from there to there. I'll have to look at that. But yeah, this is really good. Boom, 2 gateways. See. It's really easy. The 3rd bases, though, are very awkward. And this is why I didn't like it too much, because it's a relatively small map, and the 3rd bases feel very open. So we have this 3rd base, which is has a bunch of drop area behind it. There's a lot of drop area behind here too. So versus Terran, it'll be very awkward to deal with this in general without opening Stargate. But it does make it easier with the ramps. But once you're on top of the ramps, then the space up top is very wide open. And versus Zerg especially, this can get very obnoxious. Especially so because of how the 3rd base itself is so far into this little area that it's very difficult to defend both the 3rd base and the natural. Like, you can't defend both with like a pylon with some shield batteries over here. And it's way easier for a Zerg to bounce between this little area here. It's way easier for a Zerg to bounce between these two little areas here, up and down, than it is, I feel, for us to go back and forth here. Because early on, our units are going to be so... we're going to have to rely on all of our units being together versus early Zerg busts to defend these two locations, to secure the third base. Whereas it's very non-committal for a Zerg to go between the two, I feel. So that way, that means going for this space might, even though it looks better because it's a little bit more constricted with the ramps and everything, it still feels a little bit awkward to take, given how tiny the map is. But then there's this third base instead that we could take, which generally you want to be taking more horizontal and or vertical third base locations. However, there are these rocks that make it so that this is the only entrance into this base. Actually up here as well, I just realized. So you can come from this angle, but once you do, so even without these rocks destroyed, looking at how large this area is, like, it's very fucking easy for Zerg to just swarm you with this. Even Terran can just get a really huge concave. This is the only little thing, and it's only one hex that is dividing up this entire space. And then once these rocks are dead, you have literally this entire screen. Like, this is entirely playable here. This is an entire screen of open space. Like, this is actually massive. These rocks are from here to here. So, like, this is the rocks. And this is just terrain. So these will this will be a giant pathable area. But this open space here is just gargantuan. Oh god, Snoctopus. I'll look at that later. So yeah, I think this map, it looks okay at first, but I feel like the third bases are just a little awkward for how large how small the map is, and that's why when I was judging it, I didn't initially give it a very high score compared to some other ones. Even though I like Avex and I enjoy his maps usually, not really judging on the play. Oh, that's cute. It's got a frozen Nidusworm. I always like the doodad things that they put in the maps. It was very creative. But the map is beautiful. I love snow maps in general, so I don't know. I just feel like it'll be very awkward to take a third base. You try to early block off natural ramp from third. What? You heard me. I didn't really understand what that meant. King Sejong Station, man, this map was amazing. This was also a different meta though, especially with Mothership Core. It made it much easier defending a slightly farther away base. And it was a meta of Heart of the Swarm where we were more reliant on force fields anyway, so it was much easier to wall off things and to force field them. So that way, even though there were multiple chokes, it didn't really matter. Oh, what a good map. So many decisions to be made on this map as well. Every single fourth base is a viable option. Those are maps that I miss, where the base layout is not one-dimensional. You could go anywhere with this base layout. And that's something I'm going to talk about in one of the other maps. But what are the... oh, I guess we're just going right to Parasite. What was the fourth one? It was Blue Shift, Fracture, Parasite. I know what it looks like, I just don't remember the name of that last one. Oh, Cerulean Field. Oh, it was way up here. Fall. As in wall the top of the ramp at your nats. No, because then you have a pathway leading into the natural from the left. Okay, so this one's pretty standard, pretty chill as well.
Thank you.
Thanks for the follow, Perpetual Bilksec. Interesting, man. So you can do a normal, oops, not there. You can do a normal Reaper wall on this map with a, I'll get to that later. This is an easy wall off to do as well. You just make it so that the ring is at the top. And then you can fit 3 buildings. But here you can just do a wall off here and then one down here. You can't do it up here because there's this one little spot here that makes it not perfect. So you have to do it back here. And that leaves that completely walled off, but there is no Reaper jump cliff as far as I'm concerned. There's no, this is covered by doodads. So the only way that a Reaper can get up is through the natural. So up here and then up here. But down here, you got 1, 2, 3. No need to do the fancy little wall off that I do on like Dreamcatcher and stuff, where you put the pylon kind of like right here. And then another one, and then some, you know. You don't have to do any fancy wall off. You can just do 1, 2, 3 like that. Then you get led down to this little area, which is pretty choked up. And this is what I originally wasn't entirely sure of when I was judging this map. It feels like this area here can get sieged very easily with Tank Liberator or Lurkers and completely disconnect you from your third and your natural. And the third itself is also kind of wide. So you have the 2 ramps going into it, which is fine, but then again, once you're on top of the ramps, everything is really wide open, which I mean, I guess is what it's like. I guess that's the trade-off, right? Like it's either you have a even ground third base with small chokes, or you have a leading up a ramp third base with larger chokes. But the problem with it is that Protoss is so unreliant on force fields nowadays, especially versus Zerg, that holding a ramp isn't really feasible because we have so many early units that need to be sticking by closed enclosed positions. Like we have just like a few units here, like a couple Zealots and Adepts, or like very small amounts of units that need to stick by shield batteries and walls to not get surrounded, that we can't really position next to ramps to try and defend with high ground and force fields anymore. So that's why these kinds of things always kind of throw me off a little bit. Versus Terran, this isn't really a problem because you have more units in general when you're expanding and you don't have to worry too much about that kind of a thing. But yeah, this feels like it's going to be really easy to get siege. Like one Liberator circle circles this entire area, circles this entire area, circles this entire area. One Liberator circle. Like I feel like that if you get stuck in that position, it's going to be really hard to break, especially with this little thing here. They can just put Liberators on top of this cliff and just put circles down this entire little spot right here. Tanks can also hit, go behind this and behind these brushes. Lurkers can also just beeline it and just go right in the middle, like similar to like acid or not acid plant. Abyssal when you would get fucked in that little tiny corner right underneath your natural, or if they would just go on the ramp in your natural, kind of similar to that. Yeah. Not a lot of dead space at all, actually, so that's pretty nice on this map. No watchtowers, so you have to be more careful about where you're placing units to see incoming attacks and whatnot. But after that, fourth base is pretty chill to take. You can just very easily step down here to take it, or a little bit farther over here. I like this fourth base actually a lot, because it kind of puts you on the map more and allows you to control this area in front of where your natural is, because this little spot really just annoys me so much, where if you don't have control over this, you can get kind of abused by it pretty easily. So you can, if you take this fourth base later on, then you can control this area in front of it more easily, I feel. But overall, this seems like a pretty solid map. None of these maps strike me as an instant veto. It is, yeah, I guess it did have some similarities in looks to Eastwatch, you're right. Alright, so then Parasite is the last map. And okay, so this is a map that originally I kind of glossed over when I was doing judging, but then we were looking through stuff to finalize for the last judging phase a little bit. And then I looked over this map again. I was like, wait a second. This map honestly looks pretty cool, because it gives me King Sejong Station vibes. Not only is the layout or the tile set beautiful as well, I just like the tile set of this. It's a really cool aesthetic. However, what it does do, it has multiple different bases that make it a, like I was saying, a non-one-dimensional base layout. I feel like there's multiple different choices we have here in terms of which, not necessarily which third base we take, because this isn't really a viable third base in any situation, I'd say. But more the fourth base. Like if we go, even the third base even, because we could take either this third base or this third base. I'm thinking it's going to differ on matchup. I feel like this third is easier to take versus Zerg, but this one is easier to take versus Terran. And I'll explain that. But just looking at it, I feel like this is a map that has that one, does not have that one-dimensional style, like which is why I like King Sejong Station so much. As I was saying before, it just allows you to go in multiple different areas. There's no one-dimensional set of base patterns, but just a simple 3 pylon or 3 gateway wall up here again. You can alter the positioning of them to make them a little bit different, because it's not a full-length wall. As you can see, like, you get this kind of a thing where it's not the full length of 3 gateways. You have to kind of put one in a little bit. Depending on which third you take is where you would want the opening to be. So if you're taking this third base, you would want the opening to be closer to that third base. See, it's a little awkward to do at first. That's one wall you can do as well. You can do that as well. Actually, like that. So if you're taking this as the third base, you would want the wall, the gap in the wall closer to it, so you can more easily run back and forth. If it was over here, then you would take the other, you would put it on the other side. Also, because when you go across the map with this, it never goes up this ramp, it always goes down, it always comes from up here. So it doesn't matter if you put the gap here or here for the first rush distance, that doesn't matter. Okay, so unfortunately though, you can't do a Reaper wall on this map either, which is really annoying, which didn't make me like it very much. Oh, something I forgot to notice or to point out was cannon positions. Fracture has very, very little spots that can be abused by cannons. It's actually a very cannon-proof map. Catalyst, Blue Shift. I didn't check. Cerulean, I don't think I checked. This map, though, might be a problem. Cannon rushes from the ramp? What do you mean? No, okay, I'll talk about cannon rushes in a minute. I'm still doing third bases. So this third base I feel is better versus Zerg because it's a smaller area to attack into. It's very choked up, very easy to deal with, and it's not like Zerg has siege units that early. The only thing would be lurkers, but that's not really that much of an issue super early. So it's not like they can easily take this high ground position to siege down onto you while they're attacking down here. And the path the distance it takes to get from here all the way around to here to the natural is very, very long for a Zerg player to get to, I feel. So I think going this space is much better versus Zerg. However, versus Terran, I think it's worse because they could easily get this high ground position here. And while the map maker, and this is actually something we talked about to the map maker specifically, initially there was a spot you could put tanks that could siege the main building at the third base. However, he actually did it, he calculated it absolutely perfectly afterwards. Tanks cannot fit into this area here. The only spot they can go is right here, and it's literally a pixel off from being able to siege down the Nexus. Like the ring looks like of the tank looks like it's on it, but it's actually not. However, that still means the tank can completely free fire down to this area entirely. So if they somehow get tanks up here, then they have this that they could shell down. But then what would they do after that, though? I mean, would they just have only tanks here and then bio just attacking into here? I feel like then you could just go ahead and kill the tanks anyway. Maybe it's okay to take this third base versus Terran, now that I'm thinking about it. Because even if they have tanks that only are right here and up here, that are sieging just barely here and then here, like if they put tanks here, you could just run zealots or anything around here and kill this. Because they would be defending bio coming in here to snipe the Nexus to make it so you can't walk down here and defend it. Liberators again, yeah, Liberators also. However, like the tanks can just get killed. And if they're leaving stuff up here to defend the tanks, then they have barely anything down here. Maybe it's not as bad as I initially thought. Liberators can be annoying, sure. But it's still only one area, right? They could also put tanks back here, I guess. It's also very difficult, yeah, if they just get two Liberators right here, then you have to walk all the way around here to get back into any sort of flank, so you have to always do a direct engagement. However, if you take this space, where'd that probe go? Oh. If you take this space, then it's a little bit more wide open for you to deal with Terran stuff like that. There's no immediate, there's no sieging positions like this where they can just siege onto you. There is this little thing, though, where they can put Liberators on top of and tanks behind, which can be very obnoxious. But then if you take this space, then you also have to deal with the fact that they could easily just drop between these two bases, which is always the bird. Oh, yeah, here's the Reaper wall, by the way. This is also always the burden of doing pocket thirds versus Terran, where they can easily drop between these two bases. There's very little dead space, though, which leads me to believe that'll be a little bit more difficult to execute by a Terran. I feel like you can very easily blink over and snipe any medevacs coming into this location. I haven't tested it exactly, but I'm pretty sure that you cannot. Pretty sure this is easily 6 range for a Stalker, so you can't hide anything back here as a Terran. So that will make it easier to deal with that, I think. This is not really viable to block off, by the way. you would need 3 buildings to do that, which isn't really worth in my opinion. You can do pylon, gate, cyber, but you could be vulnerable to just anything killing that later on. Yeah, versus Zerg, I feel like this would be difficult because you have a very easy bounce point. Like I was saying on Fracture, you could bounce between the natural and the third very easily. You can do that easily here as a Zerg unless you kill these towers, and then this collapses down. But then they can easily kill that. But like it can bounce very easily between these 2 bases here, and it has a pretty wide open spot here. So even though you have some easy places to force field, you don't really have force fields versus Zerg early on anymore. That's not a thing. So that doesn't really make this any more easy to deal with that. And it just makes it easier to bounce between them. And then you have this and this. Like, it's so hard for you to bounce between this, but it's way easier for a Zerg to bounce between this and attack both spots, I feel. Whereas if you're over here as a Zerg versus Zerg player, they cannot bounce between this at all. That is not a bounceable location. So you only have this one small area to defend versus Zerg. So that's why I feel like this is way better versus Zerg in any situation. You're only ever going to be attacking one location versus Zerg, or defending one location. Alright, cannon rushes. This map, unfortunately, actually has a lot of good cannon spots. You have this spot you can do. I believe you have this spot you can do as well. Yep. That one's pretty far away though, but you can still very easily creep that. You have this spot you can do. I don't think you have many behind here. You can technically do a 4-wall, but that's not the greatest thing to do. But it's very close, so you can probably easily spam those down. Again, I'm not Prinef, so I'm not going to be giving you the super analysis on this. But there's a lot of very easy cannon spots here. So you have these 4 that you have to deal with. Actually, this one, no, you can't do that one too. You have 4 different ones here that you have to deal with on the top. Then you also have down here, you have this, what is it? Which one is it? Is it just this? Yeah, I think it's just this. This is really easy to do. Actually, it doesn't, no, I did something else on the top. On the top one that felt better than that. Are these not symmetrical? No, that is how I did that. Or was it? Oh, maybe it was this? Yeah, because then you can do... yeah, because then you can do a cannon here, and then you can reinforce this with that once this pylon dies. So this is a really good wall off, I think. Which would be... that. So yeah, this is a very cannon rush abusable map, actually. Which is not good. So you have maps like Fracture, which are completely cannon immune, pretty much. But then you have this map, which is very much so cannibal. You can also... no, you can't do that. So you have 5 spots that you have to be careful of. Here, 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 and here. 5 cannon spots. But yeah, other than that, I think this is a really good map. I think this is a really interesting map that'll show some very interesting play styles. Not in the sense of just like completely changing up how you play like metagame wise, but just more diverse, just tactical map presence, I feel, and map layout is what we'll see. Similar to how Sejong felt, just more diverse and just never-endingly... Like, even though it was in so many seasons, it never felt boring to the extent of Abyssal, because Abyssal, even though it was in for an extremely long time, it was a one-dimensional base layout. You would always do the same thing every time, so it felt boring. It felt like it was getting old and figured out. Whereas King Sejong, it was in for so long, but you could do so many different things with the base layout that it made it seem more interesting for a longer period of time. And that's what I think that map will hopefully do, if it doesn't just end up being broken. I don't know how that tank stuff is going to deal, or going to be in TVZ. But for PVT, I don't think it's going to be the biggest issue necessarily. So yeah. Definitely a better map pool than last time. There's nothing that immediately glares out as an instant veto. Every single one of those maps are a map that I want to play on and try stuff out on. It's not an instant veto like Darkness. It's not an instant veto like Redshift. And it's not an awkward map like 16-bit where it's okay in some matchups but not the others. Every single one of those maps is a map that I can see myself playing on macro and solidly in all matchups. What's wrong with 16-bit? PvP is a clusterfuck because it's an in-base natural. PvT is awkward because you have to open Stargate because there's so much drop paths. And then PvZ, it's fine. Catalyst turn on its head. So we'll get rid of Catalyst, but we'll get Catalyst 2.0 and Blue Shift. And then we'll keep Dreamcatcher and Acid Plant. I can't believe Acid Plant is staying. I'll be vetoing Dreamcatcher and Acid Plant at the beginning of next season. So that way I can play on all new maps. And these would end up being my least favorite two initially at the start anyway. Were these on Wikipedia? They should be, yeah. Because they were from the last TLMC. So they definitely are. Yeah, that's kind of all I have for analysis so far, just on initial look-throughs. Did you guys have any other questions about what you wanted to see on those new maps, or